technically, if you hire an attorney and you go into court, you're telling the court that you're an imbecile and you can't speak for yourself.
Uh-huh.
So they're just siphoning off money from the people, using fear and police brutality to haul people into jail, who, and they can haul you away because you don't have the superior title to your physical body, which is your certificate of live birth. They just give you a copy called your birth certificate, and now you don't have control of your body, so you can be hauled away against your will. Your automobile, they force you to register it, so you're turning over the title of your car when you register it, so you don't have control over your car. You don't have the lodial title to your home. You only have a grant deed at the most, and so they can take your home away from you if you don't pay your taxes. And it just goes on to where you have no control over your body, your property, your land, and now mind control through the mass media and fear tactics, and just everywhere you turn now, it's about there's some type of a psychological or physical operation going on that's suppressing our freedom as living souls. Even the term person. Let's say you go into court and they say this individual did this or that. Well, individual is and citizen. You hear the president talk about the citizen. Person, individual, citizen, resident, domiciled, taxpayer. Those are all terms that put you under the jurisdiction of a corporation posing as a government. But what are you really? You're a living soul. And now we've all been converted, though, unwittingly, to persons, individuals, residents, citizens, domiciled, and taxpayers. And there's a big scam going on against all of us living souls.
Yeah. And it seems like some of the judges and people that have spoke up, against what's going on, they seemingly disappear. They die, or yeah. Have you noticed that? It's like if they fight about something, they feel, hey, this isn't right. Like 2 weeks later, they have a heart attack.
Yep, exactly. I know. Sometimes I wonder when I'm going to have my heart attack, or
well, you never know.
You don't. So I'm getting all the information out to as many people as I can as quickly as possible before my time runs out. But my fortune teller told me I was going to live to be at least 86 years old.
Well, good.
So
well, hopefully you gave her a good tip.
I've got a whole bunch more years left.
Well, I hope you gave her a good tip.
I did.
Okay.
I gave her a tip. I said, move out of the United States and go someplace where there's no government. But there's no place like that to move to.
Change it just a little bit, like the Internal Revenue Service and Bitcom or Bitcoin or whatever it is. I'm just kind of wondering, that they subpoenaed the records, with the corporation, but my gut feeling from what you're telling me is they already know who the people then who've been getting on their computers and buying this stuff and getting on their phone and buying this stuff. That's kind of scary.
Yeah, in fact, banks are even telling their employees that if they buy cryptocurrency, that they're going to get fired. So it's either keep your job, or and get rid of your cryptocurrency, or if you're going to keep your cryptocurrency, get out of here. You're done. The banks are kind of scared about that. They don't really have control. My wife and I are totally into the Ethereum, Bitcoin. There's one called Poet. There's a whole bunch of different currencies, and my wife is good friends with an expert on cryptocurrency. So, whenever our income comes in, we take a certain percentage and we put it into cryptocurrency, because I really think that's in my opinion, that's the new stock market. And if you can get into the ground floor now on cryptocurrencies and start just putting in whatever you can over the next several years, it's just going to, you're going to make money on it. In fact, our cryptocurrency mentor has in the last few months, I think maybe 2 months, made $250,000 on cryptocurrency. And we go to a meeting once a week with a couple of friends of ours who are into this, into the freedom movement, I guess spirituality, or we just discuss different topics. And one of our friends put in $1,500, and it's now worth $10,000, but now down to about $8,500 because Bitcoin is kind of went from around $20,000 per coin.
Oh, yeah.
Now it's down to about $8,000 or $9,000 per coin. But I think that Bitcoin's taking the biggest hit because it's the most widely known coin, and a lot of the foreign governments now are just waiting for the right time, and they're just going to buy in big time, and I think that's going to be the new currency. In fact, we're even researching on how we can make our own coin, and we're seriously considering that.
I know.
A coin's value is determined by the strength. It's determined by the number of people who are buying it. So if you're buying it, if people are buying a specific coin, it increases its value. If you could create your own coin but nobody buys it, it's not going to have any value.
Right.
So it's not perceived value; it's actually practical value, where its worth is based on the number of people buying it.
I was listening to another talk show maybe a couple months ago, and the financial expert was saying that all that is nothing more than pyramiding, and eventually that it will, reach the top, and then, like a bubble burst. And I don't know. It just, if you like golden.
Pyramid schemes are illegal. So if it was a pyramid scheme and the government could shut it down, they already would have, and they can't, because it's legitimate currency based on the strength, and its strength is based on participation. So they can't really stop it. What I think they're doing is putting out fear tactics now. In fact, when you watch the news, you're going to hear cynicism. There's a cynical attitude toward it right now, because what the mass media is attempting to do is devalue it based on negative rhetoric. And, it's working on Bitcoin, but I keep telling people, whoever I can, look, don't buy into the negative rhetoric. Keep investing. And if you can buy Bitcoin now while it's low, buy low, and then later on sell high, because it's going to go back up again.
Oh, yeah.
People who created it are geniuses. They're doing interviews all the time. And, think about this. This is very important. In fact, I'm in the middle of building a major class action lawsuit against all of the major banks, the IRS, tax franchise boards, that in legal speaking, and I do my best, there's a difference between there's three forms of English that we use. We use three forms of English, or three forms of any language. If you were in Italy, there's three forms of Italian. If you're in, France, there's three forms of French. You have slang English, which is like, hey, what's going on, bro? What's up? That's slang. You have formal English, which is what you would learn in college and high school as far as correct grammar. And then you have legal English. And legal English is the form of English that is spoken by the least number of people.
Well, most people don't even understand it.
Really, right, most people don't, just attorneys and lawyers and judges and some police officers. And so now let me get back to money. If I'm speaking from a legal English standpoint, what is money? Money, legally, is gold and silver. Everything else that we use is a negotiable instrument. Bank checks, money orders, wire transfers, Federal Reserve notes. And Federal Reserve notes actually are promissory notes. They fall under negotiable instruments as a promissory note.
Yeah, in other words, they're not worth anything.
And every other... Yeah, they're not. They're basically, their value is based on the faith and spirit of the people.
Right.
Well, you, as a private banker, because your name is a corporation, so you're a corporation, your name, the name on your driver's license is a corporation. So you are a private banker, just like I am, and I and you and everybody else, we actually can write up, we can make, sign, and tender for value our own promissory notes. So what I started doing once I learned the promissory note, and I did a lot of research, and I formulated and I learned how to make a promissory note. I actually got inspired by Michael Tellinger, who's part of the Ubuntu movement, and he's part of Gaia TV, and he works with like David Wilcock and Corey Good and those guys who are doing a lot of like, allegedly they're saying that they're making contact with extraterrestrials and all this kind of stuff. But I learned about the promissory note, and I made my own promissory note, and I found all the supporting documentation and statutes and codes that supports that, a promissory note, once tendered for value, must be accepted, or if a bank won't accept it, then they're committing misconduct in public office, which is a felony punishable by up to life in prison. So I tendered $175 million in promissory notes to 16 different banks, the IRS, and they all dishonored them, meaning they didn't accept them. And that's another legal word: honor, dishonor, offer, and acceptance, and conditional acceptance. If I make an offer and it's not accepted, then if I offer my promissory note for value and it's dishonored or not accepted, then the bank goes into dishonor, and that is a felony of misconduct in public office. In fact, I tendered a $2 million promissory note to the Space Coast Credit Union here in Florida, and when I called them on it and said, hey, I sent you the promissory note, $2 million, you're supposed to deposit those funds into my account, I want to speak to the chief financial officer, and he resigned, and I couldn't speak to him, and then they closed our account, and they wouldn't talk to us. And so I have this ongoing class action lawsuit that I pretty much have a large enough folder now to where I could contact some lawyers. So I contacted some of the major law firms, and nobody wants to take the case. And
is that because they're scared too?
They're scared too, because think about it. Let's say we can all start writing our own money now, our own promissory notes. You don't have to go to work anymore. We don't have to earn a living. I just go in, I write my promissory note, they deposit it for $2 million, and I go buy my cars and houses, and I don't have to go to work.
Well, I could
write it for an unlimited amount. I could write it for $1 billion.
Yeah, do you know
then what happens is the $1 billion goes into my account. Now the bank has $1 billion. They can fractionally lend $10 billion, and we all make money. But they don't want to lose employees.
Yeah, there was a lady a few years back, maybe 5 years ago on YouTube, was mentioning that actually your birth certificate was worth a lot of money. Going into that and explaining the same thing like about your house, that you could just give them what you just said, and you wouldn't owe any more on your mortgage. It'd be paid off.
Well, my wife and Tracy, she did a lot of research on that about 6 to 8 months ago, and there was a huge movement on that. So if you pull out your Social Security card and turn it over and look on the back, there's a red number. And that red number correlates to one of the Federal Reserve banks, one of the main banks, as the routing number. So
right.
That red number is the routing number, and your Social Security number is the account number. And so what you're supposed to be able to do is call up, and we did this. My wife paid off a Walmart bill and a couple of other bills. She called up and said, hey, I want to pay off this bill, like $5,000 bill. And so they say, okay, what's the routing number, the account number? And then it paid off the bill. But then about a week later, they reversed the charge. They reversed it and said, no, we can't do this. The banks aren't accepting, the banks basically shut the whole thing down because it was spreading like wildfire. People were starting to do it. And then the main woman on YouTube who was putting out videos about that, I can't remember her name right now. My wife will remember, but she just stepped out of the room.
It's probably the same lady.
Yeah, she was being held in jail, and I think she cut a deal with the government, and they basically, because then she stopped doing videos, and she basically disappeared from the whole movement.
Yeah.
And but she didn't go to jail, and she wasn't prosecuted because it wasn't fraud. I mean, it's true, our birth, or basically it's not so much your certificate of live birth that I think is a bond, but it's more your Social Security account that has a certain value attached to it, and I believe it's unlimited. What was that lady's name who was doing those videos for the Social Security card for the account number? Do you remember her name? No, she doesn't remember off the top of her head, but if you just typed into YouTube, pay your bills with your Social Security card, or your Social Security number, it'll pop up.
Hey, guys, people out there listening, if you think you're going to go out and buy a new boat or an RV or a new motorcycle, and you use your routing number off your Social Security card, and you use your Social Security number, be warned, you'll probably get a charge back, and they're going to come and repo your stuff you bought.
Yeah,
exactly.
Yeah. It might work for a few days, but you're going to get a charge.